DeSantis is the point of focus for someone like Christie. I actually think that plays into DeSantis' favor because the one thing he can do is be pugilistic. We've seen him do that with an antagonistic media. I mean, the two things that he does is execute a solid vision of policy in the state of Florida and push back on the woke, indoctrined groupthink of mainstream media. So he's capable of fighting. He has a harder time connecting on a human level, one-on-one, with individuals. But this might be the perfect environment for DeSantis, a debate.
That's a really good point. It's a really good point. He's shown a lot of strength and deftness at press conferences in front of the press, jabbing back and forth. But, you know, part of the reason you get exchanges like we just showed with Christie and Rubio is that there becomes a boiling point, Tammy. Are there any boiling points between candidates that are significant enough that they're going to start turning their guns on each other in this first debate? Or do you think, for the most part, most of these candidates want to project a positive image of who they are? This is their big moment to introduce themselves.
Well, this is the introduction. We've already seen a little bit of that with Nikki Haley versus Vivek and his sometimes unusual foreign policy positions. Now, this is not necessarily a foreign policy debate, but how you view the world affects every single thing you do as president. So we're going to see some of that. There has to be some differentiation between these others versus DeSantis and Vivek Ramaswamy, who will be kind of center stage, literally. So you're going to see that. But we also know the polls say that Americans want to hear about policy. They want to hear about what these people are made of. They're not interested in attacks on Trump. I mean, we get those 24/7, so we know what that's all about. And at the same time, when we think about how do these people handle attacks, it is about what you do under pressure. And at the same time, you know the people who do well and why Trump did well? It's because he wasn't a package. There weren't memos ahead of time. This is what worried me about DeSantis, is you get a memo outlining what you do and when you do it. That is a problem. The moments we remember about Trump are moments like when he said to Hillary, "You'd be in jail." You know, these are things, remember that? But we remember that because the Americans can recognize when there is a package and when someone is being themselves. And even if you're not comfortable being natural, Americans will recognize that. Trump trained people. We now know what it looks like to be your natural self, to be comfortable, you know, in that debate. And that's what we will see with DeSantis and everybody else on that stage.
Hey, Sean, I love that. I want to explore that more with you. Go ahead, and then I've got another question for you. Go for it.
It's called being authentic, right? So Donald Trump historically didn't do any preparation for the debates. So when he came out, he was very weak on policy, right? He was mumbling and bumbling through policy. But when he got those moments, he was, to Tammy's point, authentically himself, responding in the moment because he was listening to the questions and the answers and the attacks, and he was able to respond, and he was witty too, able to respond to those.
That's funny.
And I think one of the problems that we have is we have these candidates who, again, are trying to pre-package, they're trying to over-prepare for these debates and memorize the consultant zingers. This is like early 2000. That might have worked. But today, those prepackaged lines won't work at all, which was why Marco Rubio in the clip you played got utterly destroyed because he had remembered a couple of different lines and he tried to deliver them and someone called him out. And right now, the American voter, I think, is looking for authentic leadership.
Can I just add with that, with Marco, the look on his face. It was like, and he's been lovely, and I don't know him, but he looked like a little boy caught. And that every moment matters. And when you're not ready, that is what shows on your face, and that's what showed on his face.
And I got to say, I agree with Will. I was not looking forward to seeing Ron DeSantis tonight. I thought he was going to not be so great, but Will makes a very good point. Ron DeSantis is good under attack. He can actually fight back and punch back with the media. He'll probably do it tonight.
Good.
But this is not the moment where he connects with people. And if he doesn't have to connect, he can actually do well because he doesn't do well at one-on-one connecting. I don't want to say, he's got issues with that. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
I don't want to get in trouble.
Well, good stuff. And I want to come back to you, Sean. By the way, what you're seeing on the right side of your screen there for viewers is, I believe that's Governor Scott Walker on the stage. He's giving a couple of quick remarks before Ron McDaniel comes up, and then the candidates will come out. We'll let you know when the candidates are actually coming out. And I was pointing over here to Sean Hannity because he's on the set right over here. And he may come over and say hello if he does. So he's going to preempt our coverage for a moment as he just got off the channel. He might come over to Fox Nation and talk to us for a second. But maybe he will. We'll see. If he does, we'll grab him. But Sean, to your point, how do you train that moment? And let's play a clip real quick because you remember Tim Pawlenty in 20. This came to my. I was thinking about this today. I'm like, what were these moments? Remember Tim Pawlenty? He went on a Sunday show and he used the phrase Obamacare and to go at Mitt Romney, and he used that line. And then they asked him on the debate whether he would use it or not. Hold on, stay with that for a second because we got Sean Hannity here. Sean, Sean on my shoulder. Look at that. How are we doing, brother?
What's going on? Good to
How are we
see
feeling
you.
about tonight?
I love debates. I think they're great. It's going to be interesting to watch. There's been so much talk about, well, Donald Trump's not going to be here, he's not going to be here, and I'm like, if you're one of the other guys that doesn't get a lot of attention, you should be grateful that he's not here in the sense that he sucks up a lot of oxygen in the room and a lot of the news coverage. So that's an opportunity for them, the way I would look at it, to get their views out to the American people. What are they going to do to fix the economy? What are they going to do about law and order, energy prices, borders, the crisis we have? What is America's role in the world stage? We had you on last night talking about this.
That seems to be a place where there might be some differences. But otherwise, I mean, I still haven't wrapped my brain around how campaigns are going to try to beat Trump without running against him, without offending. That now 62% he had in that latest CBS poll, 62 to 60.
Number. You know, he defies all political gravity, conventional political gravity, right? Because you would think, okay, a presidential candidate is arrested, gets arraigned. This is now tomorrow will be the fourth arraignment. And every single time his poll numbers have gone up and the support has gotten greater. In large part, I think you and I would agree on this, it's because most Americans now are seeing this as a persecution, not a prosecution. You know, you just compare and contrast how Hillary Clinton was treated with top secret classified documents, the leading subpoenaed emails, 33,000 of them, nothing happens. Those people, Joe Biden, 4 locations. How come Chappaqua and Joe's Corvette home wasn't raided? How come the beach home wasn't raided? How did he get the money for all those homes? That's another good question.
Yeah, maybe that might come up a few times tonight. I know you got to go, Sean.
I have to only go home and watch you. By the way, hello, Fox Nation. We love you. You guys.
Sean Hannity, the best. Thank you
One
very
and
much,
only
sir.
Pete Hegseth.
I appreciate
By
it,
the
brother.
way, 2 silver. What'd you have?
What?
Your medals.
Bronze stars.
2 bronze stars. You went to Kabul in Afghanistan and Baghdad. A real hero, real friend of the military in our country too.
Thank you, brother. Great to see you. We'll see you later on. Sean's, of course, got the post-debate coverage. He'll be right next to us, and whoever he doesn't get, we'll get over here. I want to jump right back into that Pawlenty soundbite real quick. For those watching, just stay with me. So Pawlenty had been criticizing Romney on Obamacare, calling it Obamacare, or Obamacare, right? He did it on the Sunday shows, but then he was on the debate stage, Sean. And he had the chance to bring it up, and here's what happened when he was asked, will you say it here? Watch.
You don't want to address why you called Governor Romney's Obamacare.
Well, the issue that was raised in a question from a reporter was what are the similarities between the two, and I just cited President Obama's own words that he looked to Massachusetts as a blueprint or a guide when he designed Obamacare.
But you said you asked a question, which is fair enough, but you chose those words. And so one of my questions is, why would you choose those words, maybe in the comfort of a Sunday show studio? Your rival is standing right there. If it was Obamacare on Fox News Sunday, why is it not Obamacare standing here with the governor right there?
President Obama is the person who I quoted in saying he looked to Massachusetts for designing his program. He's the one who said it's a blueprint in that he merged the 2 programs. And so using the term Obamacare was a reflection of the president's comments that he designed Obamacare on the Massachusetts health care plan.
He didn't say it. He had a chance on the stage, and there was a lot of buzz before that debate. Will he say it? Will he use the phrase? And his campaign was effectively over after that, Sean. So as someone who's done debates, how do you break down the barrier of maybe you know somebody, you kind of like them, and you've tweeted about it or you've talked about it on TV, but saying it face to face, how do you do that?
So, first off, he was tap dancing, right? This is a cage fight. And if you're in a cage fight, you have to punch, brawl, scrap, bite, do it all to win. And if you can't do that on the stage, how are you going to do that with Russia? How are you going to do it with China if you can't call out your opponent on a policy that you have great disagreement with? Real quickly, tonight, Pete, there's been a lot of conversation that we hope that these candidates talk about Joe Biden and Democrats and their failure. They're going to run in a primary race. They're trying to beat their primary opponents. They're not running against Joe Biden. They're running against each other. That's why I think you're going to see barbs being traded back and forth between all these candidates. And I think Joe Biden will be a secondary attack point as opposed to the attacks on each other.
So you interesting, Will. Do you believe the same thing? Do you think the focus will be on Biden, or do you think it does turn to each other? Because if you're at 6% and you're trying to take 4%, that's not a lot. By the way, real quick, Will, before you answer that, the candidates are walking out on stage right now. It looks like it's Asa Hutchinson and Chris Christie and Mike Pence. They're looking real small from where I'm at, but I'm doing the best I can. Ron DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy, Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, and Doug Burgum, who tore his Achilles, and he's out there on that stage.
Right.
Will, do you expect them to go more at Biden or more at each other?
At each other. And here's why. You don't distinguish yourself by going after Biden. They will do that, but it will not be the majority of what they have to say. I also don't think they are going to go after, a few will, Mike Pence and Chris Christie, primarily Donald Trump. So they have to go after each other, and here's why. Tammy brought up the future earlier, Pete. I think another sports analogy works. This is the minors. Donald Trump is the majors. You're in the minors for two reasons. You're there for the future, as Tammy pointed out, maybe the next election cycle, maybe for vice presidency. Or you're there for an injury, a call-up, in case something happens to Donald Trump. Maybe one of these indictments actually does something to change the election. So they want to be number two. So they're going to attack the perceived number twos. And my anticipation will be that will be DeSantis and Ramaswamy. I'll tell you, Pete, Ramaswamy is going to be fascinating. Somebody on that stage will challenge him on his prior support for masks or the vaccine regimen or his acceptance of a Soros Foundation scholarship.
Yeah.
If they are not going to, they should. I like Vivek, personally and professionally, and he's very smooth and probably has answers to all these questions. But he has to be asked, and I imagine somebody will tonight. As for DeSantis, his problem is what you have painted very well, Pete. How do you court the Trump voter without them still remaining a Trump voter? And finally, the last thing I'd say is there will be a surprise. There will be somebody we're not talking about that stands out. My humble bet is it's the guy limping in. It's Doug Burgum with his busted Achilles.
We pray for our candidates tonight.
I think you're right. Here, we'll take the prayer real quick here. Take a listen.
Our constitutional republic and our liberty and our freedoms that we hold so dear that make us so uniquely American. Because, oh God, we Americans, we're hurting. We're suffering. Our families are... dealing with indoctrination and woke school agendas, and our children, they're dealing with adult issues and adult agendas. And our young people, oh Lord, we are leveraging their futures by borrowing against their tomorrows. But we know that America is great. We are strong when we stand together. We're full of grit. We're full of determination. We are full of fire, oh God. And when we link arms and we walk forward together, nothing can stop us if we are unified. I pray for our candidates tonight. I hope that we have a vigorous debate full of ideas and suggestions to help our American people. All American people from the East Coast to the West Coast and everywhere in between, oh God. And we pray for Hawaii, for the citizens of the great state of Hawaii, for those who lost their lives, and for those who will not know another tomorrow through the fire and the devastation. We pray for the children, oh God, the school children. Let us please have a moment of silence for the great state of Hawaii. These are our prayers, O Lord, and we lift them on high. For you're a merciful God. We know you hear us, and only you can deliver. Thank you. In God's name we pray. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen,
prayer. They'll do a pledge and an anthem. We're going to stay on this here. No disrespect to the pledge or the anthem. They're covering it on the channel. We'll make sure they do. Please check it out as they do as well. Tammy, just because we only have a moment here, your thoughts with just 5 minutes to go till this thing's underway.
Well, you know, somebody who's not really discussed very much is Nikki Haley. She is one other person who has national experience, intense national experience, working with Donald Trump. She's made her way and as a governor of the state.
Why do I have to go to bed already?
So she's had an expansive set of experiences. I think you're going to see her, much like in a way Carly Fiorina kind of broke out in the debate pack as a surprise in 2016, is that we still are looking at women a little bit differently when it comes to expectations. But she has a huge opportunity here. I think she knows how to use it. Watch for her. And I think we're going to have a great night when it comes to all of them. Two of them, I don't know why they think they would ever get to be president.
Yeah,
that being,
that's true.
frankly, Pence and Chris Christie. So you have to wonder about what the agenda is. But with most of them up there, the agenda is the country. And I look forward to getting to know all of them better.
I think, Sean, no opening statements here, so it's not as if they're having to think through what they're going to say right away. They're going to get fired at with a question and answer. Do you think that maybe allows them to be a little bit more fluid to start? I think you made such an experienced point that the people that can get comfortable, like a quarterback in the Super Bowl, the soonest have an opportunity to seize on a moment. And, what are they thinking about at the podium right now?
I think they're going through all the notes, and hopefully they didn't memorize the lines, but they have the ideas of where they want to go in the conversation, what they want to bring to the American people through the debate, not memorize, but authentically deliver it. But make no mistake, as we mentioned, they are incredibly nervous at this point. What I want to see today? I want to see sparkle. I want to see razzle and dazzle on the stage, and to package the future of my country with some sparkle and energy. And maybe some new ideas. That's what I want to see tonight from these candidates. And those who do that, I think, again, will make an impact. This is not boring any longer. Trump has completely shattered the way we view these debates and the presidency.
Absolutely.
And that's what we want to see as voters tonight.
So we've only got about 2 minutes. I'm going to go back to you each in a second for who you're buying and who you're selling. The one name you'd buy right now before this debate and the one name you'd sell. But I want to remind our viewers, you can keep watching the debate right here on Fox Nation. You can also watch it on Fox News. And a reminder, during the commercial breaks, pull up the Fox Nation app, pull it up on your TV. We're going to have, the four of us are going to have an instant analysis on Fox Nation during the commercial break. You know what? It just feels wrong, guys. The national anthem's in the background. We're going to let it flow here, and then we're going to come back.
And the rockets, red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
The three of you, you got 5 seconds. Who you buying, who you selling, and we'll check the tape afterwards. Will.
Buy Ramaswamy, sell Pence.
So I buy Ramaswamy.
All right, Tammy?
Oh, I was going to... Go ahead, Tammy.
Buy Nikki Haley, sell Mike Pence.
I buy Ramaswamy, and I sell Pence and Haley, and I push on DeSantis.
Oh, that's cheating.
Interesting. He took up. That is cheating. You get your first answer. Let's see. So the debate begins now. I'll see you guys in the commercial break. How about that? And we'll give our
great.
best instant analysis after the debate wraps up in the first segment. Here we go. Over to Brett and Martha for the Fox News Republican primary debate.
Some call it the heartland. Others flyover country. But for for the 2024 presidential hopefuls, the Midwest is the place to land. Here, there is one battleground that may be harder to win than ever. Wisconsin. A state known for its beer and cheese, gridiron and grit, and also its razor-thin elections. In 2016, Republicans narrowly flipped the Badger State red for the first time since Ronald Reagan. But it was back to blue by 2020. That election came during an unprecedented year. The country was rife with tension. In the suburbs of Milwaukee, the division seemed deeper than ever. But that was just the beginning. 2 years later, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down Roe versus Wade, leaving the legality of abortion up to the states. In Wisconsin, that meant a nearly total ban. The power of that issue drove Democrats to the polls this year. Now, that new thin liberal majority on the court could have that abortion issue before it again, just as the race for the White House accelerates. Tonight, the Republican candidates will face off at the home of the Bucks and the Marquette Golden Eagles, hoping to return next July to this city on the shore of Lake Michigan to accept the Republican nomination at their party's national convention.
Tonight, the race for the White House takes flight. Welcome. Live at Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee.
8 Republican candidates have qualified and have chosen to be here on our debate stage tonight. They are here to lay out their vision for America, the battle as they battle for the GOP nomination. Good evening, everybody. I'm Martha McCallum.
And I'm Bret Baier. This is the very same stage on which the Republican choice for president will accept the party's nomination next summer. The 8 contenders are positioned by the order they sit in the polls, with the highest polling candidates in the middle standing center stage. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
Next, entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy.
Former Vice President Mike Pence.
Former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley.
Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie.
South Carolina Senator Tim Scott.
Former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson.
And North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum.
Some ground rules for tonight. We'll ask the questions, and then candidates get 1 minute to answer. If someone is singled out, you get 30 seconds to respond. And when the time runs out, we all will hear this. Very pleasant.
So tonight, these candidates have a big opportunity to break out of the pack and to explain why they are best prepared to be the Republican choice for president at a time when the likely Democrat nominee, President Joe Biden, is working to convince the country that with Bidenomics, things are looking up.
They call my plan Bidenomics. I'm not sure they meant it in a totally complimentary way at the time. But guess what? It's working.
But is it? More than 65% of Americans say the country is headed in the wrong direction. And here's the reality for some voters we talked to here in Wisconsin this week.
We have noticed a dramatic increase in prices at the grocery store just across the board.
Gas is high and food is high. A lot of people out here homeless because they can't buy food.
It's tough when you got mortgage rates at 7-8% versus 2 to 3. It's just you can't afford a house anymore.
Inflation is ridiculous. It's killing us out here.
As we sit here tonight, the #1 song on the Billboard chart is called Rich Men North of Richmond. It is by a singer from Farmville, Virginia, named Oliver Anthony. His lyrics speak of alienation, of deep frustration with the state of government and of this country. Washington, D.C. is about 100 miles north of Richmond.
These rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just want to have total control. Want to know what you think, want to know what you do, and they don't think you know, but I know that you do, 'cause your dollar ain't shit, and it's taxed to no end, 'cause the rich men know the rich men.
So, Governor DeSantis, why is this song striking such a nerve in this country right now? What do you think it means?
Our country is in decline. This decline is not inevitable, it's a choice. We need to send Joe Biden back to his basement and reverse American decline. And it starts with understanding we must reverse Bidenomics so that middle-class families have a chance to succeed again. We cannot succeed as a country if you are working hard and you can't afford groceries, a car, or a new home, while Hunter Biden can make hundreds of thousands of dollars on lousy paintings. That is wrong. We also cannot succeed when the men north of Richmond have put us in this situation. And finally, we need to lower your gas prices. We're going to open up all energy production. We will be energy dominant again in this country. I showed it could be done in the state of Florida. I pledge to you as your president, we will get the job done, and I will not let you down.
Governor DeSantis, thank you. Governor Christie, do you agree with Governor DeSantis just said there? And why would you be better on the economy than him?
Well, look, I do agree predominantly with what Governor DeSantis just laid out. I think that if you asked every one of us up here, that we would agree predominantly with what he just laid out. Here's the difference. The difference is that we're going to have to work and make sure that we sell these ideas and be able to put ourselves in a position where we get a majority of the vote, not only by winning the Congress and the Senate in 24, but also by having someone who's had the experience of doing it. Now, I was elected as a conservative Republican in a blue state with 61% of the vote, with a Democratic legislature against me the entire time. And we still, through hard, strong decision-making, brought them around to our point of view. We cut taxes in New Jersey. We cut debt in New Jersey. We made sure that each and every time we were confronted with bad Democratic ideas, we stood and stopped them. And when there were good ideas, we brought people together to make progress going forward. Truth and accountability are the things we need to do to fight waste. And I'd say the last thing is this, Brett. We cannot sit by any longer and allow the kind of spending that's going on in Washington, because every dollar they spend is a dollar that these people are not allowed to spend on their children and their grandchildren. It's robbing our country, and it's wrong.
Well, Governor, let me just follow up very quickly. New Jersey, when you were governor, had the second lowest credit rating in the nation after Illinois, and it was downgraded 11 times.
Yep. Yeah, and that's what happens when you inherit a blue state that has done that. But when you look at what we did on debt, Brett, in that state, we cut debt in that state, debt that had been left to us by 3 Democratic gubernatorial predecessors of mine who ran up that debt tremendously. And what you also saw us do was to cut the unemployment rate in half. It was over 10% when I became governor in 2010. What we also did was cut pension payments to public employees to make sure that taxpayers were not being soaked by a public employee union system that was killing the taxpayer.
Thank you, Governor.
Tim Scott, Senator Scott, excuse me. The song also goes after welfare programs. As a senator, now President Biden argued for freezing federal spending, this was back in the 80s, and dealing with sacred cows. He does not talk about that anymore. You have been a senator, though, for 10 years. So what have you done to rein in the increasing size of government?
Well, thank you for the question. Over the last several years, I've had an opportunity to vote against spending package after spending package after spending package. What we also need to understand is that Joe Biden's Bidenomics has led to the loss of $10,000 of spending power for the average family. When you see 16% inflation, your gas is up 40%, your food is up 20%, your electricity is up 20%. We can stop that by turning the spigot off in Washington, sending the money back to the states, and allowing the decisions to be made at their own houses. I helped write the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2017. We cut taxes for a single mom like the one that raised me by 70%, for dual households by 60%, returning to the average family $4,000. If you don't send it to Washington, we can't spend it. That's good news for the American people.
Okay, but just to follow up, you did, during the Trump administration, you approved $4.4 trillion, $4.1 trillion, $1.7 trillion over the course of that administration. That's a lot of money.
There's no doubt that during the Trump administration, when we were dealing with the COVID virus, we spent more money. But here's what happened at the end of our time in the majority. We had low unemployment, record low unemployments, 3.5% for the majority of the population, 70-year low for women. African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians had an all-time low, but our inflation was at 2%. Under Joe Biden, we've seen the exact opposite. We've seen inflation explode, which led to 12 Federal Reserve increases that's devastating home buyers today.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you're listening to these answers.
If I may,
hold on one second.
We're going so I don't know if I get a chance to respond.
He didn't mention you specifically, but we'll be with you in a second, Mr. Vice President. Mr. Ramaswamy, listening to all of this, why should voters choose you over more experienced politicians on this stage? You're basically, a blank slate for people. You're 38 years old. You've said that you only voted in 2 presidential elections before this moment, this political race.
So first, let me just address a question that is on everybody's mind at home tonight. Who the heck is this skinny guy with a funny last name, and what the heck is he doing in the middle of this debate stage? I'll tell you, I'm not a politician, Brett. You're right about that. I'm an entrepreneur. My parents came to this country with no money 40 years ago. I have gone on to found multi-billion-dollar companies. I did it while marrying my wife, Apoorva, raising our 2 sons, following our faith in God. That is the American dream. And I am genuinely worried that that American dream will not exist for our 2 sons and their generation unless we do something about it. And I do think Brett is going to take an outsider, because for a long time we have professional politicians in the Republican Party who have been running from something. Now is our moment to start running to something, to our vision of what it means to be an American today. If you have a broken car, you don't turn over the keys to the people who broke it again. You hand it over to a new generation to actually fix the problem. That's why I'm in this race, and we're just getting warmed up.
All right, to you, Governor Haley. So why are you better positioned to turn around this economy that we've heard all of these voters talking about tonight than Mr. Ramaswamy, who is a successful entrepreneur nationally right now? He's beating you in the polls.
Well, I don't care about polls. What I care about, the fact is that no one is telling the American people the truth. The truth is that Biden didn't do this to us. Our Republicans did this to us, too. When they passed that $2.2 trillion COVID stimulus bill, they left us with 90 million people on Medicaid, 42 million people on food stamps. No one has told you how to fix it. I'll tell you how to fix it. They need to stop the spending. They need to stop the borrowing. They need to eliminate the earmarks that the Republicans brought back in. And they need to make sure they understand these are taxpayer dollars. It's not their dollars. And while they're all saying this, you have Ron DeSantis, you've got Tim Scott, you've got Mike Pence. They all voted to raise the debt. And Donald Trump added $8 trillion to our debt, and our kids are never going to forgive us for this. And so at the end of the day, you look at the 2024 budget, Republicans asked for $7.4 billion in earmarks. Democrats asked for $2.8 billion. So you tell me who are the big spenders. I think it's time for an accountant in the White House.
Vice President Pence, you were mentioned there. 54% of voters say the cost of groceries is a, quote, major problem for them.
Right.
You blamed the Biden administration's spending for that increase. But as vice president, your administration spent more than any prior, $7.8 trillion added to the national debt, $3.5 trillion of that before COVID. So does that mean that you're part of the spending problem?
Well, first off, thanks for the question. Thanks for letting me respond to reference to our administration's record. I'm incredibly proud of the record of the Trump-Pence administration. I mean, in 4 short years, we rebuild our military. We revived our economy. We unleashed American energy. And we appointed 3 conservatives to the Supreme Court that gave the American people a new beginning for the right to life. Now, Martha, you asked earlier who's the best prepared for this job. And I must say, with all due respect to all of my friends on the stage, and even to one that's probably looking on, I think unquestionably I'm the best prepared, the most tested, the most qualified and proven conservative in this race. I was a leader in the Congress of the United States. I led Indiana where we balanced budgets and had a AAA bond rating when I was governor. And as Vice President of the United States, we spent funding to backfill on the military cuts of the Obama administration, and then we were there in the worst pandemic in 100 years. All that being said, I was the first person in this race to say that we've got to deal with the long-term national debt issues. You got people on this stage that won't even talk about issues like Social Security and Medicare. I mean, Vivek, you recently said a president can't do everything. Well, I got news for you, Vivek. I've been in the hallway. I've been in the West Wing. A president of the United States has to confront every hallway. I've been in the West Wing. A president of the United States has to confront every crisis facing America. I will put our nation back on the path to growth and prosperity and restore fiscal responsibility, just as I did in Congress and as governor,
Mr. Vice President,
and when I was vice president.
But, I mean,
you were named earlier. I'm going to give Vivek first.
We'll get to both of them.
Yeah, this isn't that complicated, guys. Unlock American energy, drill, frack, burn coal, embrace nuclear. Put people back to work by no longer paying them more to stay at home. Reform the U.S. Fed, stabilize the U.S. dollar, and go to war. The only war that I will declare as U.S. president will be the war on the federal administrative state that is the source of those toxic regulations acting like a wet blanket on the economy. So I'm not sure I exactly understood Mike Pence's comment, but I'll let you all parse that out. For me, it's pretty simple. That's something a U.S. president can do with focus, and I'll deliver on it.
Well, let me explain it to you. Vivek, if I can. I'll go slower this time.
I sometimes struggle with the reading
Look,
comprehension.
I was a House conservative leader before it was cool. I actually pushed the Deficit Reduction Act. That was the last time we actually reduced the national debt in the United States when I was the leader of House conservatives. I balanced budgets and cut taxes when I was governor. I mean, look, Joe Biden has weakened this country at home and abroad. Now is not the time for on-the-job training. We don't need to bring in a rookie. We don't need to bring in people without experience. We need to bring
It's 30 seconds when you have a rebuttal, okay? And you are up, Governor DeSantis.
So here's the thing. Why are we in this mess? Part of it, and a major reason, is because how this federal government handled COVID-19 by locking down this economy. It was a mistake. It should have never happened. And in Florida, we led the country out of lockdown. We kept our state free and open. And I can tell you this, as your president, I will never let the deep state bureaucrats lock you down. You don't take somebody like Fauci and coddle him. You bring Fauci in, you sit him down, and you say, Anthony, you are fired.
We're going to bring in...
I just want to respond to Mike for 1 second because he invoked me back. Listen, now that everybody's gotten their memorized, pre-prepared slogans out of the way, we can actually have a real discussion now. The reality and the fact of the matter is...
Was that one of yours?
Not really, Mike, actually. We're just going to have some fun tonight. And the reality is, you have a bunch of people, professional politicians, super PAC puppets, following slogans handed over to them by their 400-page super PACs last week. The real choice we face in this primary is this. Do you want a super PAC puppet, or do you want a patriot who speaks the truth? Do you want incremental reform, which is what you're hearing about, or do you want revolution?
Okay.
And I stand on the side of the American Revolution.
I've got to address
We're going to take control back here.
We need everyone to have a moment on the economy.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Can I address the COVID
There are two people
issues
who
that
have
the
not.
governor
We're going to
brought
get back to that. We are. There are two people who we have not heard from yet. So let's hear from Governor Burgum and then from Governor Hutchinson on the economy, sir.
Well, great. Thank you, Martha. And of course, I'm from a town of 300 people. It's a big deal to make it on this stage with all these folks. But when they were all wishing me well, and I think I took them a little too literally when they said go to Milwaukee and break a leg. So, but I do want to say on this, we're missing something. We can't just talk about the Biden economy because the economy, energy, and national security are all tied together. Of course, we're paying too much for our energy in our state, in our country right now. But part of the reason why is because of the Biden policies on energy. We've got a plan right now, the $1.2 trillion of Green New Deal spending buried in the Inflation Creation Act is something that is just subsidizing China.
Though.
If we're going to stop buying oil from the Middle East and start buying batteries from China, we're just trading OPEC for Sinopec. And then belatedly, the Biden administration says, no, we're going to put sanctions on Russian oil. Well, we put sanctions